again by Benning. Darnell Nurse left it in the corner, Getzlaf center, Perry, scores! Corey Perry!
Lilia able to shake away from Solani, it's given away to Solani, around in front, score! Teemu Solani with the steal! Perry in the face, 1-1. Score! Off the floor! On the board! Paul Kariya!
Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of the Forever Mighty postgame show. Shout out to Eddy for trying to rush Paul Kariya on the intro like he hasn't seen it 9,000 times.
Yeah, if you rush him, then he does it quicker for sure.
Yeah.
I can never get the timing down still. Paul just sits on my screen for a little bit
Hurry
too
up,
long.
Paul. Hurry up. Hurry. We all know what happens. Just bury it, dude. We walk into tonight's show, though, guys. Ducks lose 3-2 to the Sharks. Not a bad game. Probably one they deserve to win. Martin Jones didn't play like Martin Jones. Gibby was a little unlucky, along with a few Ducks forwards who don't know how to bury the puck. But, man, the kids look good. That was my takeaway. The kids look pretty damn good.
Not only the kids, I thought Raquel had a hell of a game. And he was beating people one-on-one. And I don't even think he was ever trying that prior to, like, the last couple of games. So even he's, so close. He's hitting posts. He's almost there, but it's just not quite going our way.
It's kind of been the trend of the last couple games, right? Where we've said, at least the kids did well. Because Lindstrom had another good game. He probably should have scored in that last game against Vegas. I know we weren't live for that game, so we can kind of reference that a little bit. But he had a shot that was stopped by Marc-Andre Fleury, which was probably save of the season. So that would have been 3 goals in 3 games for him, and he had a couple chances in this one too where he could have potted another one. He's looked great, and Comtois obviously gets another goal for his 7th, and I thought Terry looked pretty good. Obviously Sam Steele back in the lineup, and he gets a goal, and then Ricardo, I guess not part of the kids, but had a good night too. So I mean, the guys who are supposed to be doing well are starting to kind of play better, and the kids are actually putting the puck in the back of the net, which I think is a huge thing for the Ducks.
It's Ricardo, Kell's evil twins playing better than he is.
Even the refs can't.
Is he the evil one?
He looks eviler. He looks like Ricardo's nicer. Yeah.
He looks more shifty, like he's working out the
I think he has a
evil
dark
plans.
visor.
Yeah, that might be it too.
Maybe Raquel needs to switch to that visor. He needs to switch sides here because he is snake bit as all can get right now. I mean, we've criticized his play in the past, but like just the chances he's getting, I think his shooting percentage probably now is at close to being under 2%. Like it was at 2.8, and I was like, oh man, that's bad. And then he hasn't scored a goal since, and he's put up a ton of shots, and especially in this one, it won't count as a shot, but the shot he rung off the crossbar was as close as he's going to get right now.
Who else looked bad tonight was Kevin Shatner. Go figure, huh? Two guys we did not expect this season to come rolling in looking like they did, but it was good to see Steele get on the board, even though he didn't mean to score that one. Trying to pass
Some people were saying he meant it, so we'll take it.
Trying to pass the puck from a prime scoring area is just kind of typical, but it goes in for him, so that all works out for Sam Steele. I don't know. I had like ups and downs watching parts of this game where you see really good plays, and then you see a lot of turnovers by Anaheim, and ends up burning them in this game too. How did you feel, just you guys overall, with the way the Ducks looked in front of John Gibson? I felt like they just, I don't know, a lot of Sharks all over the place. I kind of felt like that it was like just, for me, a part of the concern of the game to me was that.
Well, I don't know. In the first period, I felt they probably had about 15 minutes where they were more driving the play, or at least were somewhat in control. And there was about a 5-minute, lull in the middle there. It all kind of happened on that one weird play where it got sent in, hit the stanchion, came right back to the point, and the guy tried to one-time that, and somehow Gibby just happens to be back, just happens to get it shot kind of at him. But ever since then, they took a penalty after that. That Sharks power play looked incredible. Our penalty kill did not. They score a goal, and it took us out of our rhythm, it seemed like, for about 5 minutes where we weren't pushing it. But, I mean, as far as that first period goes, I thought Gibby played well. Martin Jones just kind of outplayed him, short of that one goal. But I wasn't disappointed. I thought the Ducks played a really solid first period.
It wasn't a carbon copy of that last game against Vegas, where it was probably one of their best games of the season in terms of how they played in front of John Gibson and how they dominated the play. And you felt like going into this game, they did that against Marc-Andre Fleury and the way he's playing. And the Vegas Golden Knights, one of the best teams in the division, and you go in against Martin Jones, who has a sub-900 save percentage, and a Sharks team who's struggled to really get things going. And, I guess that is the trend for the Ducks this year, is they have a couple games where you're like, wow, they're really turning things around, and they're getting back to a point where they're fun to watch and they're dominating play. And they follow up that game with it wasn't an awful performance tonight by any means, but it is a bit disappointing when you look at how they played last game.
Well, it just kind of gives that glare again where we just say they don't have the finishers. And as much as I'd hate to agree with the Ducks broadcast all the time, but I mean, they're just not finishing their plays. They're getting a lot of good chances. They're creating a lot of great plays. They just don't have the guys right now that are bearing the puck. And I guess you kind of assume that Ricardo Kell's shooting percentage is going to go up. I mean, I think this is an anomaly for him to be below 2%. It's kind of insane. Yeah. But he's got to find a way. Otherwise, he might be that guy that gets moved out at some point this season. I wouldn't be surprised. We've been talking about it all season.
Yeah. I mean, when you look at guys that have been moved out too, obviously Sam Steele and Danton Heinen were scratched last game, and they both draw back in on the second line. I guess you could call it the second line with Jakob Silverberg. Max Jones draws out of the lineup. David Backes draws out of the lineup, and that means Derek Grant moves down from the second line to his more familiar position on the fourth line, which I think a lot of people welcomed. It's nice to see Sam Steele back in the lineup. And you know what? To give credit, I guess, to Dallas Eakins this year, or at least to the players who have responded pretty well to being scratched this year. You look at Troy Terry, you look at Isaac Lindstrom getting bounced out of the lineup and brought back in, and now Sam Steele. Every time a guy has been scratched or put out of the lineup, the game that they come back in, they've looked great. And obviously Sam Steele gets on the board. It is a lucky deflection, but I thought he looked better tonight. He was using his speed, which you saw in the first goal. Offensively, I think he was a bit more engaged, and whether that's credit to Dallas Eakins or credit to the players for responding to that criticism or that benching, it's good signs, I think, for the Ducks to see them kind of kick it to another gear and really want to fight for that roster spot.
And I think fight for goals too, because I mean, obviously we're trying to get more goals in here, and he's basically saying not only if you don't have a good game, but if you're not producing anything on there, we're going to create that competition where someone else is going to try and come in and put the puck in the net. Whoever gets that puck in the net, they are in my good graces, and they'll stay longer from it. So I think that entices them now that they see anyone can really be taken out of the lineup. Even Henrik can be taken out of the lineup. And so if that's the case, everyone kind of maybe pushes for that offense a little bit more. And, I like you said, it's credit to Dallas Eakins, because that could have gone bad, benching Henrik out of the first out of all of them. That could have really just shut down everybody, but they seem to be responding a little bit better.
I mean, every goal in this game, too, was kind of awkward. Like, you look at, Leonard scored the 2 for the Ducks. One, Gibby was just completely screened on the power play.
Yeah, that was probably the only solid one.
And then, other than that, it just kind of felt like he had a bad turnover by Getzlaf. Just squeaks through John Gibson there. I just was like, what the hell's going on tonight? It was just a weird night. Martin Jones had no business being in this game. That bugged me that he played well tonight, because I love dogging on that guy.
Yeah, if it wasn't for him, man, we could have been at a much different start in that game, because we were dominating early in that first 10 minutes, and we had those chances. 1 or 2 of those goes in, and we're up 3-0. This is a completely different one, especially since how it ended. We were close enough. It just, he outplayed Gibson tonight. And he was a big story in it, really.
And you look at those first 4 goals, and we've talked about them all kind of briefly, but obviously the Sam Steele goal, first of the game, it's just a pass back to the slot, hoping somebody's there, and it hits off Mario Ferraro and goes into the net. And then for Leonard's goal, he kind of just stops, throws one on net. It squeaks through John Gibson. There's a lot of guys in front of the net, and then that one gets through. And then Kevin Labank's goal, it might have been the weirdest of the bunch, where Evander Kane's shot pops up into the air. LeBanc gloves it down. His first shot saved, and he banks it in off the back of John Gibson. And then to cap everything off, it's an awful Ryan Getzlaf turnover that leads to the goal for Logan Couture. That is, 4 goals to start the game, where you really can't fault the netminders, and it's bad turnovers or bad bouncers or whatever for each of them to hit the back of the net.
I don't know if that third goal actually hits the back of the net. I think John Allers made that joke. Did I say hit the back of the net? I might have spoke too soon.
He also said coast to coast like buttered toast.
Yeah, once he said that,
I saw somebody bring that up in the Discord. I knew it had been said at that point.
Jimmy. Oh God.
Oh, it's just too much. That's too much, man.
Yeah. So I mean that's fluky, and if you want to kind of look at it from John Gibson's perspective, he made a good save on that LeBanc initial try, and then it's just I wish he had maybe put his arm a little bit more around the post in front of it. He kind of waited to see where he was going to shoot it, and he didn't move his arm quick enough, and that one bounces in. But that's just kind of an oddball one. And then the other one is just a horrible turnover and a quick shot, just barely squeaks by.
Can we talk briefly about the last 30 seconds of the game where Dallas Eakins, I think, confused the shit out of every Ducks fan? Why would you take a timeout and then bench your best players?
I didn't see who he put out there. Who did he bench?
It was he didn't put his top guys on the ice. I think it wasn't the variant, but I think Derek Grant was out there for the end of the game.
Okay, but I'm not surprised.
The last 22 seconds.
I would like to say I'm surprised, but the amount of times that fourth line gets put out there in key situations still amazes me. Listen, I get it.
If I had a DVR to rewind it, I would, but I don't. So I have to go back and watch it again some of the time. But I remember going, why? Why
am I seeing Delorier out there?
Is that the problem with having a player's coach at when you get to those moments where he's like, okay, you guys have been working hard tonight, so I'm going to put you out here for the last minute
Eddy
of this
disappeared.
game.
Oh, Eddy disappeared. I can still hear him.
Oh no, he cut out a bunch for me. Okay, making sure we're all still here. Good.
Okay.
No, but what I was saying was is that the problem with having a player's coach at that point? Because it's no secret that Dallas Eakins will reward lines for their effort, and he's like, okay, I like how you guys are playing. You guys get out there in the final minute.
I didn't think they played all that great, to be honest, on that fourth line. I mean, they maybe kind of did what I expected them to do, but they weren't very noticeable. They weren't really putting pressure on the net and getting chances. So I don't know if he's like, all right, listen, I want a gritty, grimy goal, get it to the front of the net and just start going to town out there. So that would be my only idea as to why he thought that might work out. But if I was going to reward anyone, I would have rewarded Raquel and everything that he was doing, because I just felt like he was so damn close. So
there's only one line I would want to have out there in the final minute, and that's Lindstrom, Comtois, and Raquel right now. That is easily the Ducks' best line when you look at the last couple games, and the fact that they've scored most of the goals, and they've been kind of key parts of scoring chances for the Ducks over the last little bit. Lindstrom had 2 key chances in this game. He probably could have cashed in on both, if not for some good saves from Martin Jones. And obviously, we already mentioned, Raquel hit the post, and Comtois ends up getting the Ducks' second goal of the game, which goes in off Mario Ferraro again. I thought it was Johnny Hakanpää at first, but that's the line you want out there right now. I think at any point in time, any key situation in the game, if I had to pick one Ducks trio right now to be out there, it's those guys.
Well, I mean, of course, you want to have the guys that are hot right now. So you would think those would be the guys that are out there every time. But like you were saying, I think Eakins just kind of caters to the players that he likes. He's that player's coach. I don't know. I haven't been impressed by him this year at all. I mean, at one point, I think we saw Cam Fowler and Hampus Lindholm on the ice together. I don't know if that was a weird mix-up he decided to try, but I'm like, that's never worked.
I mean, at this point, well, the other thing that they were starting to do this game, and a lot more towards the end of the game, but I noticed it even in the second period, is that they are letting their defensemen come all the way in. There's a few times Hakanpää was down by the goal crease, around the goal line, keeping the play in and actually provided offense. Shad Kirk kind of goes around and does it. So I think at this point, he was trying to get maybe his 2 best skaters out there, being Lindholm and Fowler, and seeing if there was some way to kind of keep it in there, and if someone makes a mistake, the other person could probably pick it up, because he's really going to try and throw everything he's got at it. I don't think it was anything permanent, but let's be honest, Shatner Kirk really hasn't been all that impressive this season, so I wouldn't even consider him their top, I'd consider him top 3, I guess, maybe. I think Hakanpää's probably been better than he has.
And who comes out of the lineup when Manson comes back?
I would say like Hakanpää's the easy answer, but the way Shad Kirk's played, like you've had success scratching guys, right? Why not first game back for Manson, give Shad Kirk a seat on the bench and see how things go?
Yeah.
There was a game where I was on, obviously on Twitter watching the game, and Steven was tweeting also, and we're both talking shit on Shad Kirk, and he literally turns the puck over twice in one shift in the middle of us talking about it. Like, dude, he's just, what is going on? How is this the thing that we get? Yeah. We try to sign this guy for 2 years, and this is who shows up. Very strange year.
Yeah, his execution was not very good. When I say someone's execution is not good, it means they can be good. They're just not being good. And so for whatever reason, they aren't doing what we know they can do. So it's not that he doesn't have the skill to do it. It's just it's not executing for whatever reason. So
when have you heard me bitch about Cam Fowler this year? Never.
Yeah.
I haven't said damn thing.
You just tried to say that him and Lindholm would be bad on their line.
Well, we know that wouldn't be. No.
So we bitched about Cam Fowler when he was playing with Josh Manson because the pair of them didn't look good together. And then Yanni Hakanpää came in, and Cam Fowler, I don't want to say he disappeared, but the bad things we were noticing about that pairing disappeared. So then we didn't really harp on Cam Fowler too much, and he's not really doing anything negatively out there as much as Shad Kirk is, where it's noticeable by everybody, right? Taking bad penalties, bad turnovers, not really generating anything offensively, not helping out the power play, the things he was brought in here to do. And I guess really barring the first 2 or 3 games of the season, it has not been a good run for Kevin Shattenkirk. Like it really was the first 2 or 3 games of the season. We were like, oh yeah, Shattenkirk and Lindholm looks good. Like, that's a good pairing. Okay, the Ducks have something to work with here. And then since then, Lindholm's looked great, and Shattenkirk has been kind of the anchor of that pairing.
Yeah, we got the New York Ranger version of Shattenkirk.
And he's not going anywhere. That guy's never. I don't think he's ever going to get benched. I don't think he's definitely not going to get traded.
Not this year.
I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised if maybe they healthy scratch him. I mean, just based on the fact that he's the one taking penalties, he's the one doing the turnover. I mean, obviously that's if Manson is back there. But I was impressed the way Ben Hutton played today. It's not a high bar I have for him. Just don't make too many mistakes. But he actually kind of made a couple of different plays that I thought were smart and heads up and creative. So I mean, I think there's a chance, and not like, oh, he's so bad we're going to just bench him because anybody's better. I think it's, hey, let's sit him down, let him reset, and see what happens after that, and then he draws back in. I would say that wouldn't be too bad of an idea once Manson gets back in the fold.
When we look at guys who could draw in, I don't want to say it's any bit close to happening, but the way Jamie Drysdale has been playing in San Diego, he's got 2 goals, 3 assists, 5 points in 5 games, scored the OT winner for the Gulls last night. It's hard not to think, like, we should give this guy a shot, see what he could do. Like, obviously, the talk has been Trevor Zegras for most of the season, for good reason. He's still, despite slowing down, he's still leading the AHL in scoring, or tied for the AHL lead in scoring heading into the games tonight. But, like, Jamie Drysdale has impressed me a lot. Like, we knew he was a good player, but I definitely felt like he needed another year of junior, and he stepped into the pros and looked good in every single game, even if the points aren't there. Like, defensively, he's looked good. His skating has been excellent. His transitions out of the defensive zone have been great. Like, this is a guy that, as much as we say with Trevor Zegras, if he continues to impress, you got to give him a shot. You almost start to feel the same way about Jamie Drysdale, especially if Shattenkirk continues to struggle.
Interesting.
Yeah, I think it's higher up on the depth chart than, like I said, your Ben Huttons or your Larson. So I wouldn't be opposed to it. And that also kind of came from some of the things that the coach, Kevin Dineen, said. Just that he's really smart on the defensive side, and usually that's the part that takes a while for guys to learn. He's already kind of got that, and that's why he said, his career he will have a good career in the NHL. He's well on his way. He's already got those little things kind of dialed in already. So
I said interesting because it's I don't know if anyone saw the love fest for Drysdale on our Twitter, but one of us posted a 15-page tweet with gifs of how amazing Jamie Drysdale is on Twitter the other day.
That's Ed then, yeah.
Hey, man, he deserves it.
Ed started the thread.
He
started a thread. He was the only
he's been excellent
to it.
You had a lot of good points, and you included video evidence for each situation. So kudos to you, man. I don't know. I was like, that's not Steven. That's definitely Ed.
To be fair, and I think when Jamie Drysdale, I knew you were going to say that. I knew it. Every time. To be fair. All right, I'll avoid it next time. When Jamie Drysdale got drafted, it wasn't that there was a lot of disappointment going around, but there's a lot of people who wanted, and myself included, a goal scorer like Alexander Holtz or Marco Rossi or somebody, one of the top forwards in that draft. And it's definitely too early to tell if it was the best decision for the Ducks or not. But when you look at what Drysdale's been able to do in a 5-game stint in the AHL here, in a year where people thought he wasn't even really ready to step into the pro game, it bodes well for the Ducks' future. Like, this is the type of defenseman they need, who he's not flashy by any means, but he still contributed 5 points in 5 games. He scored 2 crucial goals, and he just calmly goes about his business. And defensively, there's no mistakes. I haven't really seen him make a significant error down in San Diego once, and he's by far, I think, the best defenseman on that team, and that's a team that has Josh Maher on it, has Hunter Drew on it, has Simon Benoit, guys who have had more AHL experience and some with a decent amount of time in the NHL over Jamie Drysdale. Like, if you're the Ducks right now, you have a small window with the OHL starting back up in about a month here that you could throw him in for 5 or 6 games to see how he does, avoid burning the year on his entry-level contract, and at least just rewarding him with a few games in the NHL just to see how he does.
Why does he have to go back to the O?
The CHL NHL agreement.
That's
yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Jesus.
Now I'm assuming they're going to honor
Don't
it.
take all of our players because we need people to come watch them here in our arenas. Canadian babies. It's unbelievable.
That means
dude.
Perreault also leaves San Diego as well. He hasn't had obviously as good a start, but I'm assuming that's going to.
Can you imagine if like you sign a 4-year contract to go to Boston College and then you decide to leave? And then like, oh no, you can't. You gotta keep playing. You said you were gonna finish your school years here. Shut up. That's so stupid.
They should treat it the same.
That's got a lot of feelings
as
I just don't understand it.
Yeah, they should treat it the same as the NCAA, where you can't sign a pro contract, and if you do, you can't play in the league. So, for Trevor Zegras, when he signed his pro contract, now he goes from an amateur to a pro, so he can't go back to college. He has to play NHL or AHL. I get why the CHL has the agreement in place, but then you have these situations here where all of a sudden Jamie Drysdale has surprised you. And in a normal year, and when the OHL starts back up, he can't play in the AHL, but that's probably the best spot for him right now. I don't think anybody would say that he really needs to go back to junior. If he goes back down there, he's going to dominate, sure, but he's made this seamless transition to the pro game where his development is best suited to spend the rest of the year, or at least most of the year, in the AHL, and he can't do that because of this agreement. Where if you had it like the NCAA, where if he stays in junior, he can't sign an NHL deal, and once he does, then he can play in the AHL. I think that would make more sense, but they're never going to do it because then they have to lose their best players, and they don't have as attractive of a league for fans to go and watch.
Hockey literally funds the Canadian government, and that's exactly why this is happening. That's the whole reason. It is a cartel. That's what they're doing. No one can take our players. No one's allowed to.
Listen, we supply the product. We tell you when to take it.
But if Shad Kirk continues to struggle, would you guys rather see him get at least a couple games?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. I mean, before he has to go, why not give him that shot? I mean, you kind of just look at what they do for every level, and so if he's dominating the OHL and then you put him in the AHL and he dominates there, I mean, other than that, you just hold it on to him, and it's not making him a better player to play that well against. So the only reason he might do it is just to help build that confidence. But I don't think there's any sort of confidence. There's nothing he can work on there to improve his skill set. It's just going to be experience against top level players.
When is he allowed to leave the CHL?
I'd have to double check, but I think he has to be there. Would have had to be there this year, and I think he also has to be there next year as well. So the way
It's based on age. Is that how it
yeah,
works?
so it's based on two things. So you can either age out at 20. So if you're 20 and like going into that OHL season or CHL season, if you're 20, you don't have to go back. If you did, you'd count as one of your team's 3 overagers, or you have to play 4 seasons in the respective league. So for Jamie Drysdale, it's the OHL. So he spent 2 seasons there. This would have been his 3rd this year. So next year is his 4th. And he's only 18 right now, so he won't hit the age limit before he hits the 4-season mark.
That's the plan.
So he has to be back there next year unless he's playing in Anaheim. He can't play in the AHL next year unless they amend the agreement again because of COVID or whatever.
Now, I don't know why we're getting on this, but
Because it's more exciting to talk about than how our Ducks are playing.
If he signs with the Ducks, he's got to play on the Ducks. They can't put him in the AHL.
No, he's signed. He signed in a trailer.
No, yeah, he's signed. So what happens if he's on the Ducks and then he, I don't know, and then they decide to demote him, like he plays, 20 games and it's just not working out. They cannot put him down to the AHL. They got to keep him up.
You got to send him back to junior. So that's the only option you have. There's I don't remember.
And if you send him, you can't bring him back after that,
no,
right?
Yeah, I don't remember a Ducks player who ended up going through that process.
I thought it was Comtois who
Yeah,
did that.
Maxime Comtois did do that. Yeah, he couldn't go back down to the AHL. I think they used a loophole where they sent him down as like an injury rehab, and Comtois played 3 games with San Diego, and then they sent him back down to Quebec for the rest of the season. So that would be a similar situation. Like Drysdale could play 20 games next year, and then if the Ducks felt like he wasn't ready or whatever, if they send him back down, he has to go back down to junior, and then they can't bring him back up.
He's injured.
Yeah, he's injured. He can play 3 games in San Diego, and then he gets sent down.
That's hilarious. That's hilarious.
But other than Drysdale, the one guy I wanted to talk about too, because I know Jay's a big goalie guy, was Lukas Dostal. And this, outside of Zegras and Drysdale, I think the third guy people were most excited to see this year in San Diego was Lukas Dostal, just because he's playing pro hockey in Finland already. And you couldn't ask for a better start, really, to an AHL career. He's a 4-0-0 record. He's got 3 straight 40-plus save performances, a 1.75 goals against average, and a 956 save percentage. Like, he's unbeatable right now. And like I said, you really can't ask for a better start to a pro career in North America when you're making the switch over from Europe.
Yeah, so far he's everything is advertised. So not only has he come out and kind of he's probably done over that, because they said their biggest thing was getting him over here, getting him acclimated to the North American style, which sometimes is a lot faster paced, but sometimes it's a little bit harder for European goalies to make that adjustment. I think their goalie coach in there played in Europe as well, so he's got a little bit of experience, and I think he's been Dosto seems like a student of the game. He seems, from what everyone said, is he's very calm. He doesn't get rattled. He's focused on what he's doing, and he's a professional through and through already. So when you kind of have that mindset going in, and you're able to produce off of that, off of expectations, then the future looks bright, especially when you can falter early and get down on yourself. But it doesn't seem like that's happening. I think he's the part of the reason they kind of brought him over too is that I think this is probably Ryan Miller's last year with the Ducks, and after this we'll probably end up seeing Dostal. If he continues the way he's doing now, we'll probably see him as a backup role, because he's that good. He's eventually going to need to be a starter somewhere if this trend keeps going. But I don't think we'll have to wait too terribly long either to see him up with the Ducks as well.
He's young too. I think he's 20.
Yep.
Dude, and he's built like the way you were when you were 20. He's like 160 pounds, dude.
60 pounds, 6'3", 60. Or I think he's 6'1". I can't remember.
He's 6'1", 165 pounds, whatever. Yeah. So
When you think of that too,
hopefully he doesn't find beer and then he'll get as big as me.
That's the thing. Like he'll put on weight. Like he'll get bigger. He'll cover more of the net, and that should only serve him well as long as he can continue to play the same style at a higher weight, which he should be able to. I mean, he's an athletic goaltender. But I think that raises such a good point, is like nobody expected him to be this good in his first 4 games.
Yeah.
And Ryan Miller's not coming back next year, likely. And even if he was considering it, like, how do you keep this guy down? Yes, it's only 4 games, and there's plenty more games to go, and he's going to be the starter for most of them this year, so I'm sure we'll see a few games where he'll falter here and there, but if he can keep up, a .930 save percentage across an AHL season and, around a 2 goals against average, there's no point in keeping him down there next year. There really isn't. Like, you then enter another situation that we're all too used to seeing in Anaheim, where you've got a 1A and a 1B, where we saw Haler and Anderson, and then Anderson and Gibson, and now maybe Gibson and Dostal is the next kind of in line there, where along the same lines as Zegras and Drysdale we're talking about, like, eventually these guys are going to play their way into the lineup. I think the same can be said for Lukas Dostal, because he's arguably been the most impressive of the 3 of everybody in San Diego.
Dude, he lost 1 game in Finland before they brought him to San Diego. He was 10-1 with a .941 save percentage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's stupid.
Yeah, he had better numbers in that Finnish league than Tuukka Rask did when he was setting records. So I mean, he's nailed it so far at every level. He's starting off this one really good. They're obviously going to give him the whole season there, this battered down season, but he's as long, so he'll be there. He'll get all that little experience, and if those numbers are anywhere near 9.3, I mean, if you're doing 93 save percentage in AHL, where bounces happen, defense isn't exactly your best friend all the time, eventually those numbers tend to come back down to earth a little bit. But if he's anywhere up near that, then you can legitimately say, okay, he doesn't need to do this unless you just want to get him more reps. But if he seems like he can do it, and we need a backup goalie, and he gives us the best chance to win on back-to-back nights than anybody else in our system, then why shouldn't he be up next season?
Yeah, he has like an insane stat where over the last 3 seasons he's won like 50 of his 56 games played, or something like that, between the 2 seasons or 2.5 seasons in Finland and now the start here in San Diego. Like, that's unreal. He's lost like 7 games in the last 3 seasons because he's just played unbelievably. And I think the big thing for Dostal is, like, you look at the last 3 games, he's made 3 straight 40-plus save performances. He's not coasting to these victories. He's leading the goals to these victories. He did the same thing in Finland, too, where he didn't have a great defense in front of him, but he was just stopping 30, 40-plus shots a night. Like, he makes it routine. Like, you look at that game last night where he made, like, I think 45 saves. It didn't feel like a 45 save game, 45 save night for Lukas Dostal, but he's just so sound positionally that he just makes these saves look easy. He doesn't really have to make too many difficult saves, where it was like John Gibson earlier in his career, where he would make easy saves look difficult because he was out of position and he'd be diving across to make the saves, and obviously he's worked on that. But I think Dostal already has that, which bodes well for his future. It's just, now the next step is making the transition from the AHL to the NHL and whether he can do that.
Yeah.
I mean, we've seen a 20-year-old goaltender, and that was John Gibson. He had his first 3 games in Anaheim when he was 20. So, and then in the following season, I'm just looking up right now with 23 games. So, I mean, it wouldn't, like Jay was saying, Miller's probably not coming back next year. Would be shocking if Dostal plays the way he's playing and has to stay down in the AHL.
Yeah. Yeah. Like I said, the only theory I'd have on them doing that is just he'll get to play so much more, and once again, experience kind of helps on that. But if he's dominating, I think being around the NHL and getting NHL experience would also work for you as well. So I don't see it being much more of an advantage to get more games in.
Could be an end of the season thing for Dossel this year as well, where he gets a couple games if the Ducks are completely out of the playoff picture, if the Gulls have already clinched a playoff spot, where games down there aren't really meaningful for San Diego and games up here aren't really meaningful for Anaheim, where maybe he sneaks in a start or 2 by the end of the year, and we could see the same thing with Trevor Zegras sneaking in a couple games near the end of the season where the games aren't as important for San Diego and they don't mean anything for Anaheim. It kind of makes it a better situation to get a look at these guys rather than throwing them into the pressure cooker this early on in the season.
Can we segue into why John Gibson's going to get traded and how how good Lukas Dostal's going to take over, and definitely John Gibson's going to Pittsburgh because
Jimmy Murphy said so.
Like that's
so it's a foregone conclusion.
Yeah, I like we talked about a little bit earlier. It's just I love the arc. It's like how can this be? Well, John Gibson, he's from Pittsburgh. Brian Burke, he used to GM Anaheim, not when Gibson was around, but he was a GM. They're made for each other. It's going to happen.
Yeah.
It's, my sources.
I love it. I love when you can clearly see the pieces they put together. It's that obvious, but they still decided to publish it. There's no. And the thing is, they published it as that. He literally said, he didn't say, oh, my sources told me, the Penguins are calling Bob Murray on John Gibson. He literally said, well, yeah, John Gibson's a Pittsburgh native, and Brian Burke used to GM in Anaheim, and he likes to make big trades, and Pittsburgh's goaltending hasn't been great. So, yeah, that's my that's my source.
That's a recipe for a room. Yeah, so that's my source.
Where's the cap space? Where would the cap space come from, right?
Well, there's so many questions.
How is Pittsburgh going to fill that? You would have to work, because it's not like Gibby's on the books for 2 more years. Yeah. He's got 6 or 7 seasons at that rate left.
Yeah, and
there's no way.
Even if you can get the cap work, because I think Jason Zucker makes $5.5 million in Pittsburgh, you can offset most of it with that. But where does Pittsburgh get these assets? The Penguins have one of the worst prospect pools in the league because they continually trade away their prospects and first round picks to try and compete for the Stanley Cup every year. They don't really have any assets. And you can't trade
and they're not going to keep trading your first round because then you just dig your hole even deeper.
Well, yeah.
And Pittsburgh has people on LTIR just like Anaheim in order to make it under the cap. This doesn't make sense. These teams don't make sense making this deal. It's Jimmy Murphy's an idiot.
The most logical trade piece is someone like Jake Guentzel, and the Penguins can't afford to trade Jake Guentzel because they don't have anybody to step into the lineup. So you solve one need in goaltending and create another, and losing one of your best forwards, obviously outside of Crosby and Malkin, and Jake Guentzel. And like I said, you can clearly see the.
I would only want Guentzel on team if we had Doc Emmerich to say his name, just the way he says Guentzel. I can't even do it. We'd have to play an audio clip. Don't make me do that. It's too late.
I'm not sure what you're talking about, so I want to hear it.
We'll have to have it prepped for the next show. But that's the thing. At least if there's a path work to a deal here, put some effort behind it to look to see if the Penguins can even make this work. Because I know Brian Burke has a tendency to pull off crazy deals. He's done it in the past, but the Ducks aren't going to take Malkin. That's just not. They're not in a position to bring in a player of that age at this point in time. They're in a rebuild, so it doesn't make any sense. Penguins aren't going to move on from their top young players like Guentzel. They don't have any top prospects in the system. Their first round pick is essentially useless. There's just no way a deal like this happens. But it's Jimmy Murphy. We joked already.
And it's behind a paywall. You can't even read the whole thing. It's clickbait.
Yeah, 100%. That's what it is.
You want to read my dumb opinion? You got to pay for it.
Yeah, and even though Brian Burke likes to do, he's coming in, and I think they're probably coming in to evaluate how this season goes and see where they can maybe make improvements at the draft or in the off season. I don't think they immediately come and go all right, let's start getting big names in here now. I need to make a splash in my first week, otherwise everyone's gonna be mad at me. I don't know. I think he's gonna probably take an evaluation and then kind of give his opinion on it.
Remember when people thought that Freddie Anderson was better than John Gibson?
Yeah, another rough
people
night
still
tonight.
do. Yeah,
the Leafs had a 5-1.
Well,
at least it wasn't against a bad team.
Were they up 5-1 and they lost 6-5? Or were they up
with 10 seconds left in the second period, and the Sens scored with 9 seconds to go, and then scored 4 straight goals in the third period, and then 1 in overtime.
Mitch Marner pulled off the move of all moves on Dadonov, but then Dadonov went down to the way and scored the goal. Freddie has not looked good. He's just, I don't know. Everyone brings him up all the time about him being an excellent goaltender. And
but you look at a bad stretch.
Is he? Okay.
He's not an excellent goaltender. I don't think he's bad, but he's not in the same category as John Gibson right now.
I'd agree with that.
I think the Ducks won that trade.
Yeah, we got Steele and Comtois, so I think it's still ongoing. I think they're both long-term going to be, them together as a package are going to be more valuable to the Ducks than Freddie Anderson would be. So I think no matter what, as long as the Ducks got two decent NHL players out of those picks, that they were going to win that deal because John Gibson has been so good. Like, you really don't need Freddie Anderson at that point. You don't need two starting netminders. The Freddie's wasted as a backup in terms of how much money you would have to pay him to stick around. So, it was always going to be an easy win for the Ducks as long as they got two players who could make an impact on the NHL roster.
I mean, he's 909 save percentage last year, and now he's at that 901 save percentage this year. Oh.
Yeah, and John Gibson,
Almost Martin
despite
Jones numbers.
the Ducks' troubles, went into this game at a 922 save percentage and a 2.26 goals against average. Like, again, they're not the best numbers to judge goaltending by, but that's still pretty impressive considering how much the Ducks have struggled this year to support him offensively.
True. He's better than Freddie Anderson. Just ask the Maple Leafs fans.
Yeah.
Tying a bow on that Pittsburgh stuff, I could see Marc-Andre Fleury going back to Pittsburgh, and maybe Malkin makes his way to Vegas.
And so when Marc-Andre Fleury gets benched, are they gonna put a sword through a penguin? Is his agent gonna put a sword through a penguin?
He's never getting benched there because he's the only guy who can play net there. He's the only quality goaltender they would have.
Who else do they have there now? It's
Tristan Jarry.
Oh yeah. Well, we all thought he was going to be good last year.
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know. I haven't watched enough Pittsburgh games to know what their problem is. But it's obviously not the goaltending.
And then there was other rumors about Ducks players. Was there not? I don't want to go throwing under the bus out there, but it's floating around Twitter that Getzlaf on the move.
Yeah, it was a rumor.
Someone of the Oilers.
Yeah, it was a rumor that was picked up from like a podcast discussion that Frank Cervelli was on. Somebody had asked like if Getzlaf was available, and he didn't really say he was available. He just said he would be a great deadline acquisition for any team, which I think is, pretty easy to say. It's true. He would be a great deadline acquisition for a team looking to compete. He's a leader, and he's still a quality player in this league, and he has a unique skill set that really hasn't died away yet. And I think if you surround him with quality players, he can and put him in maybe a second or third line center role, then I think he can be a really good player for you. So it isn't anything surprising to say, yeah, a lot of teams would be interested in Ryan Getzlaf if he was available. He's a unrestricted free agent at the end of the season, so it makes sense. And maybe he's looking for a new challenge or a last chance at the Stanley Cup. So I get where they're coming from there. But again, similar to the Jimmy Murphy, John Gibson stuff, it's not really a rumor as much as it is saying, oh, that would be nice if that happened.
Yeah, here's an interesting narrative, and I'll find little things that might make it work without.
But
really
can't you see him actually going and winning and then re-signing for the last contract? I could see him doing that.
Like bouncing out for a year if he wins a cup and then coming back, then yeah.
Yeah, he doesn't have a contract next season, so why wouldn't he go and take a shot at winning and then just re-sign it? It's not unheard of.
He said he has no desire to go run for another cup with another team.
I've never met an athlete that
that's what he
goes
said.
against his word.
Yeah. Well, I'll sit there. I'll stand with Ryan Getzlaf. No, I think he is. I mean, I don't think Anaheim's a perfect fit for him lifestyle wise. He has already won a cup. He's going to be the franchise leader in goals, assists, points, pretty much everything we want him to be. His jersey will be retired. He'll go into the Hall of Fame. And the one thing that he really prides himself on is being not only a captain, but being on the same team throughout his entire career. He finds that as a unique thing that almost no one ever does. And so I think he would go, well, do I really want to do that just to play third-line center on a possible cup run with another team? Or do I just like what I've got and like where I'm at and like my legacy here? I think he's more of a legacy guy versus, I got to win another cup right before I retire.
I don't see why.
I see. Like I agree with what Jay's saying. Like I don't think Ryan Getzlaf is actively saying trade me out. I want to go win a cup somewhere. But he's also been a guy who said like if the organization asked him to move on, he would move on. If Bob Murray came to him and said, hey, we got an offer, it's too good to refuse, you're going to Edmonton, for the second half of the season here. We'll bring you back next year. We're getting some assets here. I don't necessarily think he would say no. Obviously, it depends on the location, and I think Edmonton is or Calgary or something like that is close to his hometown, where if he had to leave for 4 or 5 months, that going to a place that's close to where he grew up and where his family lives now.
Go be part of the Battle of Alberta that's developing again this year. No, why not?
Again, like I said, I don't think he's actively asking for it. But if the Ducks got an offer that was too good to refuse, I don't think it would be impossible for it to happen. But I do think, Pat, on your end there, if he does go somewhere, I think Anaheim's his first option to come back to next year, even if he doesn't win a cup. But if he goes somewhere, to try and get that cup, because the Ducks want to get assets for him this year before his contract expires, I think he does come back here. I don't think he would ever re-sign somewhere else. I think Anaheim is the place he wants to end his career and likely stay there if he without moving, if he possibly can.
I still see it being an opportunity for him to go win elsewhere. Why wouldn't you want to? He can say that all he wants.
Okay.
Like he won a cup.
Pat knows
his second
what Getzlaf
season.
wants more than Getzlaf.
Well, no, but like he won a cup his second season.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But
I would say
didn't
that.
Jumbo
That'd be
Joe
greedy,
and Patty Marleau say the same thing? Like, oh, we'll never leave San Jose, and then they both left San Jose.
Well, they never won a cup.
I know, but I mean, we're saying Getzlaf is sitting here saying that he says he'll never leave. I believe both of them also said that in San Jose, where Joe Thornton and Patty Marleau said, yeah, we're never going anywhere. And then they both left because the Sharks were moving in a different direction. So I think I believe Getzlaf when he says
Maybe he'll go to Montreal to play with Perry.
well, Perry didn't have a choice. So
Perry almost won a cup last year.
yeah. Hey, he might win a cup this year. Montreal they looked pretty good, not anymore, but
Yeah, let's all talk about the Canadian division that is not as good as everyone else thinks it is.
all right, we gotta wrap up these trade rumors here. The last one is the fishiest of the bunch. A noted Anaheim Ducks blog says that their sources have said that the Devils would want Adam Henrik back. Not so much saying that their sources told them that the Devils are inquiring about Adam Henrik, just that they'd want him back. So I don't really know.
Once again, every team would want him. If he just comes over. Great. Bring him on over.
It's one of those things
I'll take a Henrik.
where again,
You got 2 Henriks? I'll take 2 Henriks.
dude, it's the narrative again, right? It's so easy to write. Oh, of course a team that he played for almost a decade would want him back and would love for him to be amongst their young players like Jack Hughes and Nico Hischier. Of course they would want him to be around for that.
Adam Palmieri wants to come back to Anaheim, so I mean it fits a narrative. He was in Anaheim at one point, and now he wants to be again because narrative.
That's actually interesting. I didn't even think about that. Would you do that deal? Because I would. Adam Henrik for Palmieri right now?
Palmieri?
Yeah, I would.
I would 100%.
Yeah, the way Henrik's playing.
I don't even know what.
Palmieri hasn't been doing all that great this season.
He was
either,
out with
though.
COVID for a bit.
Is he on your fantasy team?
No, I just happened to look. I don't know why I was looking. I needed a narrative to fill, so.
He's got 3 assists in 8 games.
Yeah, he was out with COVID for a bit, but 5 straight 20-goal seasons. If you had to pick any type of player that the Ducks could use right now, I think it'd be Kyle Palmieri, and he's only 30, so he's right at this. You're essentially doing a hockey trade, which Bob Murray loves. I didn't think about it, but honestly, out of all the deals we've talked about here, it's probably the one that makes the most sense.
Well, let me get to my sources, and then we'll make this happen.
I mean, he did leave Anaheim and then start scoring goals, so maybe it wouldn't bode well for him to come back.
I don't even know how much he makes right now.
Where my career never took off? Yeah, let's go there. But if it's a trade, he doesn't have a choice. Unless he does. What's his contract?
That's what
No
Love
trade?
these rumors.
Palmieri is 4.65 for just this year. So,
The Ducks would have to try and re-sign him. I don't think they'd trade Henrik after they
We
just
should create
signed
burner
Henrik.
accounts and just start.
Yeah, I should.
It's not the
rumors.
We'll just start naming each other as sources.
Listen, it's not the worst trade concept ever, though, to bring in Palmieri for Adam Henrik. I think both teams benefit there. I think they're similar players in terms of total production, points-wise, around 45 to 50 points. You're just swapping, a two-way center who puts a bit more assists and can get close to 20 goals for a pure goal scorer in Palmieri who can hit 20 pretty easily. in any season. And I think that's what the Ducks are more looking for. And I would argue for the Devils side of things is they're looking for a player who's kind of been there and done that in New Jersey and kind of knows their culture and to help guide the younger players into the next era here. Adam Henrik, I think, is the type of guy for that.
Yep, this rumor's writing itself.
Right.
Eddy's leading the charge.
Yeah,
It's too easy. It's too easy. They all have a little bit of a narrative, of course, behind it, but no actual substantiated sources, though.
Yeah. PK Subban wants to go back to Montreal, too, by the way.
We'll just take all the salary and take Palmieri and PK Subban.
Yeah. You'll have to think about it. When you're doing trade rumors, you don't think about the actual financial part of it. You just go, listen, they just want it. It's going to happen. People are interested. Everyone's interested.
It's like NHL when you just like try a trade, they say no, you throw in somebody, and they go yes.
You just keep throwing a little
someone like a little bit lower,
they say
yes. A little bit, fifth round.
Yeah. Okay, so that's it pretty much for the trade rumors. I mean, it is what we kind of expected. If you thought we were going to come in here and add validity to some of these trade rumors, then I think you're in the wrong place. But the one thing I wanted to talk about, I was hoping Troy Terry was going to have a nice game on the stat sheet. He didn't, but he leads the Ducks in passes to the slot heading into this game with 22, which is double the amount of the next highest player, which is Ryan Getzlaf. Normally, like when you go and you kind of dig for these advanced stats, you can kind of explain them away. For this one, I think it shows a little bit more that Terry is a bit of an underrated playmaker, and maybe I'm eating my own words here, and I criticized him a lot for his offensive play this year, but it's one of those stats where you don't notice it, I guess, when you're watching too much, but when you look at the stats at the end of the game, you're like, wow, Terry had 4 passes to the slot this game. And when you're looking for a team that's looking to score goals, you need more guys to do that. And when you have one guy who's doing it double the amount of the next highest guy, it's going to catch some eyes. So I got to give credit to Troy Terry there because he's clearly doing the right things on the ice, and it's just not equating to points yet, but I think he's looked pretty good over the last couple of games here.
Oh, yeah. For sure the last couple of games. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he's creative. He's got creative talent. I think they're expecting maybe a little bit more finish to his game, and it seems like now he's maybe doing more of the playmaking stuff. But that's a good stat to follow and to actually have, because whenever that happens, it can create chaos. Even if it's not a direct pass that works or anything like that, if it's a pass and even if it's bobbled or it hits a skate or something like that, yeah, you increase the chances of something stupid happening, like what Sam Steele did, where you just kind of is throwing it back to the slot, the guy's kind of charging behind, and then it gets lost in the shuffle and goes in. That doesn't happen all the time, but it's going to happen a whole lot more likely the more time you throw it in there, especially given how many games. That means he's doing it at least once or so a game, if not more.
I'm not a big Troy Terry fan, but I will say that this season has been different for him. I mean, especially with his goal scoring, he was able to put together. I don't know. He has to do more often for me to be sold on him. To me, it wasn't a surprise that Comtois was the goal scorer. Yeah. Everyone thought that Terry was going to come here and be this power play guy and like score a bunch of goals, and it's just. You could say he's in the right place at the right time. You could say he makes the right play, but until you see the guy being able to finish at the NHL level, I'm just gonna wait or move him. Like, I don't know what the Ducks want to do. They just need to shit or get off the pot with some of these guys, and I just
Terry's looked better the last couple of games, and I'll be the first one to say I'm with you for most of that. Just because I kept hearing about how he's working on his game, he's gonna get better, he's gonna reach that. These things will start going in. And then it almost kind of becomes like a Max Jones thing where it's like, all right, well, he's trying hard, but nothing's happening. So, but the only difference I would say is over the last couple of games, I've seen his play pick up a lot more. I notice him a lot more. He's trying one-on-one moves a lot more, and he's not necessarily getting knocked off the puck as easily. So we'll just see if it keeps going, but he's still got same with me. He's got a long hill to climb before I start going like, okay, I think he's NHL material, and I'm happy with where he's at.
All right. Before we move into the fan questions here, we're at the quarter season mark now. The Ducks are 6-7-3, and officially after tonight's game, They have the worst ranked offense in the league at 1.94 goals per game, and the 29th ranked power play with an 8.57% efficiency. There's actually 2 power plays worse than that somehow, which is ridiculous.
Detroit, Ottawa?
I would assume so. It's got to be. But, I want to get your guys' thoughts on the Ducks a quarter of the way through the season. For me personally, I think this is, I guess, where I expected them to be around. Maybe not this bad offensively, but right around this mark. And obviously the goaltending has rebounded. And being just under 500 at this point, I think is safe to say where most people expected them to be at.
Yeah, I would like to go back and revisit what our predictions were for the first 20 games.
I know mine was 8, 8, and 4. I'll have to see if I can bring up everybody else's.
We got to go back and figure that out.
Yeah, I know mine was like 11 something and something. I think 11, 7, and 2.
I think I had 17 and 3.
Yeah, probably.
No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, you're the optimist of the group.
Stevens wasn't too optimistic either.
Apparently, Jay, you and I are the optimists, and it's Eeyore and Droopy when Steven and Eddy do the shows.
Sad. Let's see. As far as what the Ducks are doing,
funny.
I'm more impressed with the goaltending. I like you said, I think they kind of did a little bit of bounce back. Usually, Gibson starts off pretty good and then gets worn down as the season wears on. But right now, I haven't really seen that yet. This game maybe is a little blip of it, but they were just weird goals. The offense, that's disappointing. I wasn't had high expectations, but definitely not the worst in the league. Is not where I thought we'd be at the quarter of the way, and I really thought the power play would come up bigger than it has now. And I think that kind of goes hand in hand with not scoring enough goals. But I thought Raquel was has been doing well. He's just it's just snake bit. I mean, that shooting percentage is like the opposite. When someone's shooting way too high, you're like, oh, that's going to come back down to earth. You almost have to think with how many chances Raquel's getting, that's going to start coming up, and he's going to start getting some of those goals, and then that all starts kind of going up. But they got a long hill to climb to even get anywhere further away from the cellar on the offense. I've been disappointed with Shad Kirk. I thought he'd have more of an impact.
It's been pretty bad.
Yeah,
it's been pretty bad. And everyone knows that I love Hampus, but I mean, Jesus, he was not the guy I would expect on that pair to be the guy that's like leading offense and making good plays. Like there's so many times this season where I've seen him go end to end and come back and break up a play on the defensive side of the puck. I'm like, holy shit, like he's really coming around again. And it's just disappointing to see where Shad Kirk's been at, obviously. But I'm actually a little surprised where the Ducks are. I thought they probably would look worse than they have. I know they're not scoring, but they're still eking out wins every now and again. And they're not getting hosed by horrible teams. Like at least they stuck with the Sharks. They beat the Kings. They played well against Vegas. So I think it could have been much worse, but what are you gonna do? I had to make it in the playoffs in that 4 spot, but I don't know.
They're right in that mix, right? Like they're still within touching distance of Arizona, and they're ahead of San Jose and Minnesota, who both have games in hand. Like they're right in that mix of those 4 teams fighting for that last playoff spot, and LA is really the only team who's kind of fallen off that. But even LA is still kind of within distance of Anaheim. Like it's easy to say if LA won their next 3 games, which is probably not going to happen because they're 4, 6, and 3 on the season, but they're only within 4 points of the Ducks with 3 games in hand, so it's possible they could catch them. And when every team has played 16 games, the Ducks could still be the worst team in this division. Other teams have to win games, of course, and a lot of these teams, of course, play each other the way the division structure is this year. But I don't think it's super surprising to see the Ducks kind of in this mix of a team floating around 500 amongst several other teams floating around 500 in this division. One of them will win out and get that 4th spot, looking like Arizona right now, because they've been the most impressive of the bunch. And Jason, I know that was you who ended up predicting that.
That was me.
Darcy Kemper
I got laughed at.
Darcy Kemper with a shutout win over St. Louis today.
1-0 over St. Louis.
They are looking. They're looking like the best of the bunch here. But Minnesota is also still in that mix, and they've only played 11 games. So they also could jump up there. And a quick update on Ricardo Kell's shooting percentage. It's now at 1.96%, 51 shots and 1 goal.
Yeah, he should have so many more
Top
goals.
15 in the league in shots, and he's got 1 goal.
Like I said, he looked great today, except it just did not go in for whatever reason. But the fact that he's making moves and getting open is a good sign for me, because he used to never do that. It was just outside. Maybe it might be around the net, and maybe it might come to me or something like that. But now he's taking an active role and trying to get in there and make something happen.
All right, let's jump into these fan questions, and then we'll wrap up the show here. We've only got a few from Twitter. The first one's from Jacob. He said, what are the chances of a decent playoff run next season if this team maintains the competitive level of the last few games? This was asked before tonight's game, so...
They played well tonight.
I thought they were competitive tonight, and they just got some unlucky bounces and couldn't capitalize on theirs. Are they playoff team next year? We have the expansion draft. It depends if Zegras comes up. Depends.
Division's realigned back to normal.
Depends on a lot of
well.
factors.
Yeah.
I mean, Ryan Miller won't be there for other games too, so I find it hard. I think there's still maybe another year out. It depends what they can do. Because, but I mean, Getzlaf's contract comes off the books, so maybe there's a chance there that they sign him for less, and that frees up some money to get somebody else
to get out from under LTIR, pretty much. Honestly, I think there's a better chance of them making the playoffs next year than this year, because once the divisions go back to normal, you swap out St. Louis and Colorado and Minnesota for Edmonton, Calgary, and Vancouver, who I don't think are better by any means, especially than St. Louis and the Avalanche.
Oh,
right?
Vancouver's
They're not
trash.
much better than if you think maybe you add Trevor Zegras on a full-time basis next year. Maybe you finally had that goal scorer that you were looking for. You start to integrate some more of the prospects. Another year for some of these guys. Another year for Maxime Comtois under the belt. Maybe Jamie Drysdale makes the roster next year as well. Like, you're adding some more pieces to this team, and with a weaker division, maybe they squeak into that 4th spot next year. I think if they can keep some of the improvement we've seen this year, I think that's the big thing is, when you're still rebuilding and you're not playing that great hockey, you want to see improvement from the youngsters, and that's something I think we've seen this year. And guys responding to getting, held out of the lineup and brought back in. I think we've seen that progression this year, and if they can continue that all year and build into next year, they're not going to be a playoff contender.
But he's talking about a decent playoff run. I don't see that happening. I see this being they
could
make the
squeak
playoffs
it next year.
Maybe.
Yeah,
it's a maybe. That's a maybe next year for me. I don't know. There's this team. We just ran their offensive numbers. The power play is atrocious. It's unbelievable. There's 2 teams that are worse than the Ducks. You just watch our power play, just like, how? Okay. Do you guys not watch how the other teams do it? I don't get it. And then they don't have a scoring winger. I mean, Maxime Comtois, great, but there's no way you can go to the playoffs and have a decent run. I just don't see it happening. Maybe in 3 years is when I think this team might start to be competitive again. But I mean, we just wasted John Gibson's prime
under a new
so
coach.
just remember
and
that
a new
when you look
GM,
back at these teams,
right? So.
Okay.
Next question we got was from Ricky. We kind of already covered Lukas Dostal a bit. We'll just give our quick answers here. He said, do you think that Dostal is ready to make the jump to the NHL now after his past 4 AHL games?
No.
Yeah.
There's no need.
Yeah, not no need, but yeah, I mean, he needs more time in there to do a 4-game run and go like this, dude. Gibson, you bench, get Dosto in there. I mean, it's not going to happen. So, and the Ducks are fine where they're at.
Yeah, it's too soon. It's 4 games, and it's a great 4-game stretch, but it's still 4 games, right? Talk to me when he started 20 games,
40
in
games
the AHL this year, 30 or 40 games in the AHL, and if he's still producing at that level, then I can better answer that question. But for right now, it's not worth it. Just continue to give him the reps down there. Next question is from Dave. He said, would it be advantageous to swap out either Henrik or Silverberg for Milano? Wouldn't mind seeing Milano play with Getzlaf and Terry or with the Steele and Heinen lines.
I'd be okay without Silverberg, honestly.
I don't know. I think Silverberg's got more of a shot that's lethal than Henrik. I still haven't. Although Henrik came back, I think he had a goal and he's played slightly better. I'd be willing, same thing. If someone's not scoring, set him down, put somebody else in there. I'm not opposed to either one of them, but I don't think you're going to put in Milano and then all of a sudden your goal scoring problems are solved and you can keep those guys on the bench.
Trade Adam Henrik for Palmieri and play Getzlaf with Milano and Palmieri.
Not that I dislike Silverberg, he just hasn't been the same. So you can say that about a number of guys on the team, right?
Last year, I think he was playing with Getzlaf for most of the time. We're like, okay, this is why he's unlocked what we thought he could do. Is the big talk about Silverberg last year was that Dallas Eakins is allowing him to be more creative. We saw those comments from both Silverberg and Eakins is that, you know, he's being used in a more offensive role, and it feels like they've taken a step back on that this year, where they're like, okay, you're playing with Sam Steele and Danton Heinen, and your freedom offensively isn't quite there as it was last year. So I think out of anybody, it's maybe a bit more understandable to see a bit of a regression from Silverberg, although it's not even been as bad as a regression we've seen from Adam Henrik, who's being used on that top line with Getzlaf and Terry, and he still isn't getting things going. Next question and second last one here is from Victor. He said, can the Ducks trade Shatner to one of the other teams that wanted him in the offseason?
No.
I think they're going bullet dodged. Because he's still got term, he's still got money, and he's not doing anything. Why would you want him?
It's funny how it goes from, okay, 3.9 is fair, and if he played really well, okay, 3.9 is a bargain, to, okay, now 3.9 million for 3 years seems like a lot of money for the Kevin Shatner that we have.
Yeah. Hopefully he turns it around, but I mean he's had some time to do it, so we'll see.
Well, we have the Zegras question and we have the expansion draft.
Yeah,
question.
I was going to say the expansion draft question for another day because I know Steven was talking about setting up a middle of the season type show where we go over, you know, who the Ducks have after the trade deadline and look at what an expansion draft protection could look for the Ducks. So we'll save that one because we're probably going to cover that in a more in-depth basis, and I think it warrants a more in-depth kind of discussion rather than just off the top of our heads. So we'll finish it with the Zegras question here. It's from Caitlin. She said, do you think the Ducks are waiting to call up Zegras for when they're home for a longer stretch of games so they can send him to Irvine easier if needed as opposed to on the road? And then she mentioned that the Ducks have a long stretch of home games next month against the Kings, Sharks, and Coyotes.
It does make it easier.
Yeah, I guess it makes it easier, but at the same time, too, it's for the most part, most of the teams are within driving distance, with, you know, St. Louis and Colorado kind of being that exception. Minnesota being that exception. I don't know what they're doing with Zegras. I mean, at this point, you're kind of hoping that he, you know, pops into the lineup at some point and give him a shot doing that. And if it's that they're waiting for the home, I mean, it could be a reason. I don't think it's necessarily a driving force.
What do you mean? No one's scoring. Why would you bring anybody up that does that? That doesn't make any sense.
No, I don't know.
I'd love to see it during
at that
run.
point. It's just getting my hopes up that, you know, because it's a logical point to make. Like, the Ducks do have a long stretch of home games, and if you were going to bring a guy into the lineup and you didn't want him to miss a ton of games, doing it when you have a long stretch of games at home makes sense, right? Because then if the Gulls play the next night, you can send him right back down to San Diego and not have to worry about him, you know, being on the road and having to get back in time for that game or missing out on action with the Gulls. So yeah, it gets my hopes up that it's a possibility, but it probably is just that, where, you know, it's speculation and it's something that makes sense, but Bob Murray probably doesn't go with it.
They're not going to bring him back until there's fans, because they want to show off their new product in front of the fans.
Look, it's shiny. It's new.
We'll never see him until next year.
Yeah, and even Ricky mentioned in the chat, if the Ducks went out with the 4 playoff spot, do you think Murray brings in Zegras? I don't think that has anything to do with it at this point, whether they make the playoffs or not. If they're going to play him this year, I think they already know they're playing for him, and obviously we're not privy to that, so we'll only know they're playing when they choose to reveal it.
Yeah, which they don't, so we'll never know.
The downfall of this franchise has started when we did Bobby's breakfast, and he screwed us out of extra food. And then this last season, he did an online only because of COVID, which is fine. But he only talked for like 2 minutes and then let the players talk. Like
he's trying to escape
he
the
let the
hard
prospects
questions.
talk.
Even then, he's not even really getting hard questions. 'cause
Well, he
they're
wouldn't
curious.
even let us ask the hard questions before. You had to submit them beforehand, and then they got to cherry pick the ones that he wanted.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
God damn it, Bobby.
Yeah, the ones that are handwritten by their staff. Those are the ones that end up getting in.
Yeah. This one
This
comes
one comes
from
from Bill
this
in
one
our
comes from
PR department.
Neil. Neil? Neil? No. Neil. And Neil somewhere.
All right, well, that's it for the show today. When's the next game? It's Thursday? Thursday. Against the Sharks as well? Or am I wrong? Minnesota?
Minnesota.
Oh, Minnesota, fresh off the
I think
COVID.
Yeah. Which means
Yeah, they said they had all their delays because of COVID.
Big game, I guess, for the Ducks. I mean, every game against those teams close to you in the standings are a big game. But, Minnesota coming off a lengthy layoff here, you would expect the Ducks to have a bit of an advantage against them going into this game on Thursday.
Do you guys think they take the W?
I'll say yes. I think so.
No.
I'll give them some credit here. Like, I think it's tough to come off for Minnesota, it was, a 2-week layoff now because they were put on that week lockdown for COVID, and then they also got it extended.
At the beginning of the month. Yeah.
I think they're chomping at the bit to get back in there, and then they got a lot of energy to they got a little mini reset so they can kind of take a breather, kind of watch everyone else play hockey, get amped up, get ready to go, and then get a Ducks team that just lost an odd game here.
Maybe they exhausted all in LA tomorrow.
They got the Ducks Thursday and Saturday.
Their first game back is against LA tomorrow for Minnesota. So maybe they get it out of their system tomorrow. And then
that's possible.
I don't want to say fatigue, but the lack of playing time catches up to them for Thursday against the Ducks, hopefully. I think they get out a win here.
That's a great narrative. We should see if our sources agree with you.
All right, guys. Thanks for tuning in. We'll catch you guys on Thursday night.